Hi everybody, my name is Andrew from Fishing on the Fly and welcome to episode number 2 of Fishing on the Fly TV. Today we're going to talk about how to pick out the right fly for the job. Now this is a pretty introductory topic. Most experienced fly anglers are going to know how to match the hatch, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you're new to the sport or you're a more casual fly angler, this is something that's really important to cover because I know from my own personal experience, when I was first starting to fly fish, I'd go to the river, I'd open up my fly box, I'd find the prettiest dry fly there, and that was what I was going to use for the day. Obviously not a very scientific process, and if you know fly fishing and you understand it, it's pretty comical, honestly. So that's what we're going to cover. Stay tuned, we're going to have a lot of information packed in here, and I hope it helps you guys. So the biggest filter, the very top of the funnel, for me is always the greater conditions, right? So what season is it? Super basic, but it makes a really big difference, right? Spring fish are gonna act differently than fall fish. And that's closely linked to water temperature, which is another thing that I look at. If the water's really cold, that's gonna affect the just greater fish activity, as well as insect activity and hatches, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Similarly, weather conditions are really important. You want to know if there's been a lot of rain. If there hasn't been a lot of rain, that'll usually impact like the current flow and also water visibility in some cases. So I like to start by looking at just what's going on, right? Gain context for the situation. Then I start asking myself, is anything hatching? This is where having some knowledge, some foundational understanding of insects and insect life cycles is really helpful. We'll do another video on that. It's probably a topic for another time, but you want to tap into that knowledge base that you have. If it's 65 degrees and it's pretty humid and it's late May, what kind of insects are going to be hatching in this area on this day? Now, if there is a hatch going on, it becomes a lot easier. You can look in the brush along the bank, or you can look in the trees or the bushes, and a lot of times you'll see what's hatching, and that is a great place to start. That's going to tell you, okay, well, what kind of fly is this going to have to look like? There's specific color patterns and variations for different types of insects. By knowing what is hatching, you can match the hatch. So once I kind of know what insects are hatching, or if there isn't a hatch going on, what other food sources they may be feeding on, I like to look at how the fish are actually reacting to the food source of the day. Are they rising? Is there a big hatch going on but you don't see any fish breaking the surface? That's a good indication that they're feeding subsurface on the nymphs. So you do want to look at how the trout are actually reacting, right? Because you could have a hatch all day long, but if they're feeding on sculpins, those are tiny little fish, they're not going to hit the insects, right? They're honed in on one particular food source. So taking a look at how the fish are acting is really important. And if you're in clear water, a lot of times you can actually, sit at the bank, observe, and you'll find a few fish and you can watch how they're acting. If they're, rising every 2 minutes and they're breaking the surface on adult insects, it's a good indication that you should throw a dry fly. So it's things like that. You like to think about how the fish are behaving. Then I like to go even deeper than that. How are they rising? There's a little bit of debate as to how much rise forms actually indicate what the fish are feeding on. But generally, if you have a big splashy rise, fish are a lot of times coming from deep water and bolting to the surface to hit insect on top of the water. And so that's a good indication that you should use a dry fly. Other times you'll see fish tailing the surface, right? And if you're not paying attention, you might think that they're rising, but in reality, their heads are going down on the bottom and they might be feeding on scuds. They're little like crustaceans, I think, or nymphs on the bottom of the riverbed, and their tails are breaking the surface. And so they're not looking at your dry fly, they're looking for nymphs. And you need to make sure that you are matching the hatch in that capacity. So that's kind of an idea of how I look at it. It's like a funnel, right? You want to look at the greater conditions, then you want to look at what could be hatching on that day, and then finally you want to look at how are the fish behaving. And you're never going to have a perfect answer, especially for that stuff at the bottom of the funnel that I'm describing, because you may not be able to see the fish, or it may not be a clear-cut hatch on that day. But as a general framework, this is kind of what most good fly anglers look at when they go to the water. So I hope this helps you guys. It's very important, especially for new fly anglers. When I first did it, I was kind of shooting in the dark, and it really helps to have a strategy. So I hope that next time you guys go out on the water, you do a little research beforehand, get an idea of what could be hatching on that day, and then finally take some time before you actually step in the water and observe, and then you can make a really good informed decision on what fly to use. So I hope that helps, guys. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave it in the comments. I love hearing what you guys think. And until next time.